The Angry Chicken Hearthstone podcast is produced by amove.tv. Check out amove TV for more podcasts covering Blizzard games. For more of Jocelyn's gaming podcasts, visit jossplays.com. And to find many more podcasts with Ridiculous Hat, follow @RidiculousHat on Twitter. Every episode of TAC is made possible thanks to our legendary patrons over at patreon.com/TAC.
Time's up. Let's do this.
Legendary!
You face Jaraxxus. You smell like a leper gnome. I knew it. So hot.
A podcast about Hearthstone and Battlegrounds. This is The Angry Chicken!
Hearthstone, Battlegrounds, and Mercenaries. Greetings and welcome back, everybody. This is The Angry Chicken, the episode all about Mercenaries because it's Mercenaries launch day. I'm Garrett and Xyrella, here, as always, with Ridiculous Hat. And unfortunately, Joss really wanted to be here, but Canadian Thanksgiving got in the way. And, yeah. Sorry.
Now, Garrett, isn't Canadian Thanksgiving on a Monday? And isn't this episode coming out on a Tuesday?
All right. Yeah, sure. Let's let everybody back into the meat processing facility and show them how the sausage is made. Yeah, we're recording this on Monday night. If you like, but you can't watch it live. You can't watch it live because there's these things called embargoes. And we're currently under one because we got to play Mercenaries early. And to be very specific, on like a closed server where we didn't get to keep any of our progress or anything, we didn't get any preferential treatment beyond getting to try this mode sooner than everyone else.
Yep.
And we can't talk about it until it's out. That's the embargo is basically when it's out. So yeah, we're recording this off air stealthily. If you're watching on YouTube, hello, people of the future. How are you enjoying Mercenaries? Leave a comment below. Podcasters, podcast listeners, how are you enjoying it? Tweet at us or write in, because that's how you communicate with the podcasts. Because they don't have comments below. Those are called reviews. Please leave 5 stars.
These segues are so graceful. I wish that we were live so people could admire them in Twitch chat, but you know what? People will admire them from afar, like the Mona Lisa.
Oh.
That's right, I said it.
Did you just...
That's right, I said it.
Wow, that legitimately might be the highest compliment anyone's ever paid anything I've said. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hat. But yeah. So we've had a chance to play Mercenaries. We've had a chance to put quite a few hours into Mercenaries, as a matter of fact. So we've had a chance to play quite a lot, basically our fill of PvE or PvP Mercenaries, either one we wanted to try. We had a chance to start basically with a fresh account. We also had a chance to play around with like completely maxed out, super epic, awesome, max level, max spec'd out Mercenaries and take those into a PvP environment and mess around with that. So we've gotten a pretty full-fledged sampler of what this new Hearthstone mode has to offer. And I guess I want to start by saying that Jocelyn wanted to make it very clear that we relay her thoughts, which is she liked it more than she thought she would.
Going to be a lot of that going around, I think. Yeah, this is not Jocelyn planned a national recurring Canadian holiday to avoid talking about Mercenaries because she hates it. That's not what happened. It just,
Okay, first of all, if Jocelyn hated it, I feel like she would have found a way to make recording on her Thanksgiving work.
Yes. Or would have just recorded herself yelling at her phone saying, I hate it, and then sent it to us, and we would play it on the show. But that didn't happen because she didn't hate it. And I am certain we'll talk more about this in the future. But yeah, I think all of us were pretty pleasantly surprised with what was going on there. And
that is definitely my thoughts as well. As I like absolute TLDR, you want to get out of this podcast in 2 minutes. I liked PvE a lot. I don't feel a great pull to PvP.
Yep. It's there is a rather extensive discussion to be had, and you can bet this show will have a lot of that. We've got a whole bunch of stuff coming for you. We've got details down below after the break. We have a cool interview coming up that we recorded ahead of time. But I don't know. There's the short version is this is a thing that I want to do. Our early access ended yesterday. I would play today if it wasn't. And I expect this will just be a regular part of my Hearthstone diet, and I expect to lean pretty heavily into PvE. But that isn't the only thing to do for sure. My co-host Edelweiss over in Coin Concede, I think she played PvP on the first day for like 9 hours and kept coming back and coming back and coming back to it. There are a bunch of people that I spoke to about it that were also in the early access test had a bunch of wildly different experiences based on what they wanted to do, and it's pretty cool that the mode has enough depth for that to be a thing.
Yeah. It's I'm right there with you. I don't think I ever really expected it to be a shallow experience by any means, but I think there was a heavy amount of skepticism from me in worrying that this game where you can level up your mercenaries naturally by, just playing the game, or quickly by pumping money into it by buying packs and whatnot, that there too much of it would be too much of the weight of the mode would be placed on PvP, because that would make sense from a business model perspective. And so I guess in the back of my mind, I did kind of worry that the PvE side of things would be a little light, a little shallow, that there wouldn't be all that much there to sink my teeth into. And so I think why I've had such a positive reaction to my early time here with Mercenaries is that that is not the case. There's a lot of PvE to be had. And the game's fun out the gate. What's funny? There's one big glaring thing that I still don't really understand. It's a question or an uncertainty that, even having had a chance to talk to the people that made Mercenaries, play Mercenaries myself, and kind of mull it around in my brain, I still don't know the answer to. And that's the value of packs or pre-ordering. I didn't pre-order Jack. Even after playing it, I could have. I had knowledge. No one else had, Hat. I played the game, and I could have gone, yes, I will now. I like it. I like it enough to go I still kind of feel like I don't think I needed to. I don't think I needed to pre-order. Arthas seems cool.
Yeah.
But
he's very cold. He freezes people.
Get off my podcast. That was terrible and wonderful at the same time. You are, in fact, still ridiculous hat. But there's so many moving pieces, but at the same time, I don't know. It's not as daunting or as insurmountable as I had originally kind of thought from the first Mercenaries reveal stream that we had.
You mean the dizzying deluge of information with no prior context confused you? Who could have seen this coming?
Yes, again, I go back to that. What is that? The 30-minute video from Slissa did more to explain Mercenaries to me than anything else. Including playing it myself. Although had I played it myself before I watched that video, I'm sure it would have cleared a lot of things up. I think the starting experience is great, by the way. The starting experience, really clearly they put a lot of work into it to make sure that it's not overwhelming. But also just by nature of the way that you start the game, you start Mercenaries, the way Mercenaries themselves as a unit in this game mode function. When you first get them, they are level 1, and they can only do one ability. And then you unlock a second ability, and you can have up to a max of 3 that you ever need to worry about per mercenary. So as that gets slowly fed to you through the starting experience of Mercenaries, it makes all the sense in the world. You pick it up really, really quick, just by virtue of every other thing in Hearthstone, just playing with it, just clicking on things and seeing what it does. And if you're, since you're starting in PvE too, it's there's not really a timer or anything. You can take all the time in the world to figure out what attack goes where, and you don't have to hit ready until you are ready. So so many of my concerns melted away really, really quickly, and I was replaced with, I'm going to have to eat my hat. Pun intended.
No.
My hat, not yours.
Yes.
Not yours. Even though you
And
never.
honestly, I feel the same way that you do trying to talk about this mode, and I understand, in a way, how the reveal stream went the way it did. When you want to start talking about Mercs, especially to people that you know are excited and you have a blank slate, there are like 5 different directions you kind of want to go in right away. You want to talk about the economy, you want to talk about the PvE, you want to talk about the PvP, you want to talk about the learning experience, you want to talk about the interface, you want to talk about actually playing the combat.
Well, hold on.
All the stuff.
You know what I don't want to talk about? Pre-ordering for Diablo, which felt like that was just
Right.
shoehorned into that presentation.
Yeah. Well, and to come back to your idea of the value of packs, it's kind of hard to tell, but honestly, what I think they did here, if this is a gacha game, then normal Hearthstone is a gacha game because you're just paying for variety, but you're not paying for access. That's what it is, right? And constructed Hearthstone now these days with the reward track and all the new friendly stuff, or new player friendly stuff, it's a lot better than it used to be. Still has some opportunity, of course, but if you get started and then you want to do a thing or two, the game will give you the tools to do that. And Mercenaries, I think, might even be more generous than that. In the first 60 minutes of solo play, I had 14 playable Mercenaries, and I was able to level an ability from each of them. 14 in the first 60 minutes. There are 51 total in the game. I think your first pack is guaranteed a legendary Merc. There are some that are the first 8 I think are scripted. Like you're guaranteed to get them either as part of the tutorial sequence or from the early tasks. Like you're always going to get those particular characters. But then also there are enough quests to give you more packs, and then they give you coins for it, and then you do some bounties along the way, and it didn't feel like I was short on options within the beginning of the experience. There's a point where I went a little bit later and I felt like, okay, the progress is slowing down a little bit here. But I was also holding back because I know I'm going to want to play this in my main account. And so I didn't want to sink 5 days of PvE into an account that was getting taken away. I can't wait to actually play it in my account. And I expect that logging in to do your dailies will be something that is pretty fruitful pretty quickly. And buying the pre-order just seems like, do I want cosmetics and variety faster more than anything? Because the characters aren't stronger. You don't get better characters, and no matter what you do, you can't spend money for levels. You have to actually level the characters. The game is not pay to win. Not even a little bit.
What? Well, hold on, because you get more coins through packs, which lets you level up
To
abilities.
unlock abilities. But you have to unlock the abilities by leveling the character, by playing the character. Right? It's still a time investment first and foremost.
To a certain degree, but it doesn't take very long to get all of the abilities.
To get to level 30s, I don't know. I didn't unlock any level 30s in the tutorial account.
Okay, that's a fair point. I forgot that there were things locked behind that high of a level. Because you get 3 abilities very quickly.
I think the third one is level 15, and then you start working on the equipments, which take multiple tasks as well as level caps. You're gonna have to invest time, and again, there are more digressions to be had here about PvP matchmaking that will come much later in the show. Even though we could talk about them now and digress right away, but it feels
there's still
they really didn't want money to dictate who wins.
Yeah, they seem to have. We'll see how it shakes out. We'll see how the matchmaking actually works. I'm certain if there is an issue with the matchmaking, we're going to hear about it on the subreddit very quickly. If that's even a concern. I personally, I'm not drawn to the PvP like at all. I'm ready to be wrong and to find the fun and maybe go to the School of Edelweiss and have that explained to me. But right now, like, I legitimately enjoyed my time with PvE. I am not longing. I do not have a dearth of PvP options that I do enjoy in Hearthstone. So with the time that I spent with Mercenaries, like my draw is just to the PvE because it really, like, God, it feels like so many lessons learned from all of single player Hearthstone, which for the most part were misses for me, with some glaring exceptions. I really, really enjoyed dungeon runs in basically every form they took, and then they just stopped
Even
making
Rumble
them.
Run?
No.
I know. Nobody liked Rumble Run.
Nothing
that was the
about
only BlizzCon
Rastakhan.
demo I ever went to where there was like, there's no line, you can just stay. It was...
I played it up in the press area, so there's usually not that long of a line to begin with. But yeah, there was always
Demand was low, huh?
always a kiosk open, and there aren't that many kiosks in the press area. But we're not here to dump on Rossicon's Rumble. History has already done that for us.
Yeah, it's been gone. But yeah,
my
solo
point
content
is
in Hearthstone. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my point is that I have historically not really enjoyed it except for dungeon runs, especially like Dalaran Heist is probably a high point for me. I enjoyed it so much. And so while I don't think going back to the more kind of linear stories like the Book of Heroes and the Book of Mercenaries that they've been doing are inherently bad, I do think they are not for me. It is not what I come to Hearthstone for. I don't get very much out of it. So single player Hearthstone for me in the last year plus has basically been non-interactive. It's not something that I interface with. I'm off to Standard, I'm off to Battlegrounds, and those are the two places I spend almost all of my time. So to go to play Mercenaries and see have such a strong feeling of, a lot of my favorite things from past single players like Dalaran Heist, they're here. I can see the echo. I can see the lessons learned. I can see some of the straight up same mechanics. I mean, there's treasures when you're going through and completing these single player bounties. And then also the bounties are procedurally generated. So if you do it more than once, the boss will be the same, but the path to get there may be slightly different. It's freaking cool. I'm so surprised I enjoyed it, I guess, is where I'm coming from. And so yeah, that to me is my story. I hope I don't feel like I'm overhyping it, but to me, I am so surprised that I left our initial demo and, I could come back and play more. I went and had lunch and I was explaining it to Katie and I was just like, I kind of want to go back and play more. Not that I broke embargo. Not that I would never do that. I would never do that.
Nope.
Never.
Neither of us shared this game mode with their wives and/or ordered them pre-orders.
No, exactly. Yeah. I'm married to someone named Katie, and it's also just what I call talking to myself. So I was very surprised while I was at lunch that I was just like, I want to go back and play more. I want to push a little further. I want to get some more levels. I want to see if I can upgrade Xyrella's ability. It was fun. Now I don't think this is going to become my main Hearthstone mode. If I'm going to bring it back down to earth right now, I think this is, as you said, I think it's going to be kind of a side dish, but a constant staple side dish to my Hearthstone experience. I'm really looking forward.
Did I say that off air?
You mentioned it earlier.
Did I? Sounds like something I would say.
You didn't go into your full-on mashed potatoes analogy, which was a conversation you had with me off air. But
mashed potatoes,
which I think is an apt analogy, because I can't think of a more heavy lifting side dish. And that's how I kind of feel.
Yeah.
So
mashed potatoes are delicious.
Yeah.
Mercenaries, if constructed is steak and if Battlegrounds is chicken, then Mercs is the mashed potatoes. And sometimes a good side dish makes the meal more complete. And it's not something that you order on your own, but you could if you wanted to. My wife would. But also it's something that if it's missing, you really notice it. And Hearthstone was missing for 7 years. Repeatable, replayable solo content with a view forward, an idea of how do I make solo content that is going to improve over time. Because the idea of the old solo content was it's replayable because there's random generation. Sure, I don't need to run another dungeon run right now. I get the general idea, even if it's a little different. I get the general idea. But Mercs is solo content that I know will keep growing both with my time investment and with new content they put into the game. And Hearthstone just hasn't had that. And even if Book of Mercenaries was for you, and I think the writing in Book of Mercenaries is awesome, and I enjoyed my time with it, even if that's for you, that's what, an hour? You're going to go back and run through the story again? No.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. It's fine for what it is. It is a really well made hour-ish experience for sure. But yeah, there's so much more here. And that's part of what excites me about it. It was to me, I think my excitement for PvE was kind of threefold. My concern about cost and need to buy in was pretty instantly kind of washed away when I realized the starter mercenaries are really good. They seem to be getting me where I needed to go. I was not, at least in probably 4 or 5 hours of playtime, hitting a big wall where I just felt like, oh, okay, it's time to buy the good mercenaries. The starter mercenaries are solid. I was making really good headway. I wasn't having to like rerun bounties, at least in the first 4 or 5 hours for myself. And we're all getting the same mercenaries.
Xyrella's no joke.
Xyrella's amazing.
Xyrella's no joke.
Yeah,
She's really, really strong.
Yeah. May inform an answer to a question we're going to have later on. But so that was like one part of me getting excited. The other part was just, do I enjoy it? Do I like playing it? Does the gameplay loop of Mercenaries feel good? And it does. It really does. As someone who was immediately put off when I saw the gameplay, just being like, oh my God, you click on them and then 3 things come up. And then why is the board so barren? I don't know how I missed the board is dressed up when you fight the boss, because they showed that in the original reveal stream, and I think I just blocked it from my head. But there is board dressing when you fight the boss boards, and there's like stuff you can click on. It's like, it feels like a Hearthstone board. So that looks better.
Combat,
but
it's so satisfying to play out too. So Team 5, you've said a couple times they've learned a lot of lessons from the past. I think that what Mercenaries is, Battlegrounds kind of happened by accident, right? Connor Koo was a QA tester turned game designer, background in game design, but he came up through QA. He was working on Tavern Brawls. He made BGs, and then everyone else started playing. It's like, hey, this is pretty good. We should make this a game. And then BGs happened, right? Like that's the kind of story that you can't really just. That's not the sort of thing that you plan. Mercenaries is the tenured Team 5 employees all said, if we're doing new things, let's do a cool new thing. And they planned it from the ground up. And everything they've learned from 7 years of Hearthstone is here. It's a genre that has a bunch of other entries. They cut out all the crap. They cranked up the polish. They made it really Hearthstoney. They put in characters that you know. And they made it fun, but still complex. Something about the way the combat plays out, the attacks are so fast and fluid. Like when combat goes in, it happens. It is not like a BG's battle where you're waiting for stuff. It's like zip, zap, zoop, zoop, and it happens. And after you ready up for combat, there's this moment, the zoom in. Oh, the zoom in gets me. When you choose your abilities and you ready up when combat starts, it zooms in. The characters are huge in the middle of the screen and they do all their things and they're so like chunky and splashy and flashy. And it doesn't feel like there's any empty space because your eyes are glued right to the middle of the screen, and the whole screen is just filled with your characters just smashing each other. And it's just really, really enjoyable to see it play out. And then even though the order of the abilities is non-random, it's deterministic because the speed system is pretty cool. It goes lowest speed to highest speed. But even if you get an idea of knowing what's going to happen and plotting it all out, which I usually didn't do because ain't nobody got time for that. Is it just like I want to see what I can do the next turn, and then I want to see the combat happen. But there's no chance of getting screwed over by RNG either here. It's all about what you choose to happen happens. And some abilities have cooldowns, and like, oh, next turn I get my cooldown ability, and then I get to do that, and all their stuff is going to die. But what if they do this? And it's really exciting in a very Hearthstone-y way. And they learned ramp up the crunch. You want to make it really, really crunchy. Turn down the details, but leave them there for the people that want them, which is people that are PvPing. They'll want all those details, and just make it enjoyable to click the buttons. And I just want to click these buttons all day, and then go back to the tavern and click the upgrade buttons. And they use the battleground triple animation when your characters can have their upgrades done, and that hits a very like dense reptilian part of my brain. And I just want to upgrade and then go into combat and then click some buttons, then come back to the tavern, click some more buttons, and just do that all day, just all day.
Yeah, it's fun to interface with, which like normally I would say seems like a crazy thing to even bother saying because it's Hearthstone, it controls well, it has really solid UI. But again, that peak we got with the reveal stream, it just did not impress me. I was like, this doesn't look like Hearthstone. It just seems kind of weird. But when I had a chance to try it myself, like it just feels good to click on, which is absurd. But it was something I was legitimately worried about, and now I don't need to be. So yeah, it is Pokemon AF and in a good way. Like I know we mentioned Pokemon a few times, like specifically like good old fashioned turn based Game Boy Pokemon. That's how I'm surprised how much of that is triggering in my brain when I play this. So yeah, I'm feeling weird about the whole thing because I was like, cool, this is going to be this thing that's going to be this massive launch and certain content creators are going to go full bar for it. And I'm just going to be like, cool, that's nice. Don't care. Back to standard and battlegrounds. But, and I really, really felt that way. Like I felt like that was going to be my take. That my take was going to be much like duels. I'm just going to sit here and be like, yeah, it's not a real mode. And you're going to be like, yeah, well, I enjoy it. And I go, yeah, but you're hat. And we move on. And this is just our lot in life. But yeah, Mercs feels like a real mode. Sorry, duels. You half baked.
They were clearly designed with different scope, right? Like really, really.
Yeah,
different
one was
scope.
designed to
Duels
be
is
good,
for-
and the other was designed to, I don't know, accidentally maybe make money.
Duels designed to cater to highly engaged players that want to be in the client and want to do complicated stuff, and they have a ton of cards, and that's what they want to do. And that's not a lot of people, and it wasn't designed for a lot of people. Mercenaries is designed for everyone. And I think you'll be kind of hard pressed to find someone that doesn't find some aspect of this that's enjoyable. But yes, the scope of duels is very different. Very different.
It's a nice way to put it. So, yeah. Anyways, we're going to kind of get into the nitty gritty here, but, some housekeeping first. Want to thank our patrons supporting us over at patreon.com/TAC. If you like what we do here at The Angry Chicken and you want to support us, $1 or more, you can set it for whatever you want. We've got some pre-made levels as suggestions, but I don't know if you knew this about Patreon. You can literally enter whatever amount works for you. It's an opt-in subscription, and we really appreciate all of the support that we get. So this week, I want to thank our latest patrons, Disc GTI, which I just hope you're a Volkswagen enthusiast with a name like that, and Hearth Battle, which will be the next mode. That'll be the next mode.
I guess so.
Yeah. Also want to give a shout out to Eric V for doubling their pledge. Thank you, Eric. You didn't have to do that. We didn't ask for a raise, but you gave us one anyway, and we really appreciate it. Does asking for a raise work?
Thanks, Eric.
Is this something we can do?
I should ask your boss.
Ooh, that's me. My boss is a jerk.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Stupid Katie.
Patrons are also our bosses, and they're not jerks, though. We have hundreds of bosses, and they're so much nicer than the real bosses I've had in real life.
I mean, my boss is pretty nice. But yeah, I like the patrons.
Tell me what that's like, Hat. Tell me what it's like.
It's all right. He lives in Kansas, and I work in New York City, so like there's a good healthy boundary there. But he used to live here, and we've had drinks together before. And then he got promoted, and then I got promoted, and then my job went away, so I came back. So he's like, "Hey, how's it going?" I'm like, "It's cool." And he's like, "All right."
Sick. Well, folks,
Yeah.
if you want to support us, check it out. Patreon.com/TAC. Get access to our Discord, an ad-free version of the show. And now, before we get into kind of some nitty-gritty thoughts about Hearthstone Mercenaries, let's kick you guys over to our interview with Nathan and Joe from the Hearthstone development team. And if you're watching on video, that's going to be its own video. Go watch it. Go give it a look-see. It'll be on the same channel. Should probably upload
Hey,
the same
wait, hold
day.
on. Video listeners, you're the only ones that are ever going to see this, and I think that you're really special. Don't tell audio. They don't have to know. This is just
Yeah.
between us.
Don't tell audio. Yeah, they're special too. They got it intercut, but y'all are rad. Thanks for the comments. Said that one person. You know what you did.
That was my alt. Sorry.
All right. Well, thanks again to the Hearthstone team for putting that interview together and also letting us record it. I think most of those interviews, Hat, are like people writing things down and turning them into blog posts. Because almost every time they're like, "Oh, we're recording this cool." They're always cool about it, but there's always this moment where they're like, "Oh, this isn't standard operating procedure today."
So, speaking as someone that did an interview immediately after that one that was for press, I can enlighten that. And the theory that I have that seems to come to fruition is that for written media, if you give an interview that includes written media, you don't want to just publish the video because it takes time to make an article. So if there's someone that's working the article for a week and some idiot podcaster just posts it on the internet, then what's the point of writing that article? But if it's an interview for us, and we can post it as long as we ask, it's cool.
It is. I appreciate them letting us do that. So, anyways, let's talk specifics about Mercenaries, and I don't really want to go like point by point by point, but I figure we could talk about PvE, we could talk about combat in general, have a little chat about PvP, have a big fat meaty conversation about the economy of Mercenaries. Before we take a few questions from our patrons. So, we've talked a decent amount about PvE already. It's definitely for me. I think is going to be my biggest personal draw to Mercenaries. But boy, it's nice to have a understanding of how PvE works. Like I remember like them showing the town, right? And thinking to myself, oh boy, how much money is it going to cost me to fill out this town? You're going to fill out that town like right away.
It's the total cost is 900 gold, which is 60% of a single portrait. If you're crafting a portrait for the constructed side, that's 1,500 gold. Three-fifths of that, and you get all of the mercenaries upgrades, period, forever.
For the town.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, because like you get all your base buildings like for free. It's like part of the tutorial is just building that stuff.
Yeah. You pay for they gold gate the PvP, which I assume means that players are kind of opting into that experience if they pay for it, but it's like 200 gold. And then you can get an extra task slot on your bulletin board, on your bounty board, I think, for 100 gold, something like that.
That's my understanding. Yeah, I don't have the figures in front of me, and at the time of recording,
I
we don't have
exactly
access to that test realm anymore, so we can't go in and check. But
And we would never log in during recording. That would be unprofessional.
It would be very professional if we could, and it would help us give more accurate information.
But then, if I was in the client, I would play Mercenaries.
Okay, well, I can control myself.
That must be nice.
Yeah. The extra task certainly seems worth it if you want to play more Mercenaries and get more things done in Mercenaries. But like you said, the gold amounts are not astounding. It's not a massive gold sink by any means, at least not filling out your town. But
it's less than a heroic brawl used to be, and we used to complain about those like when they came out right before a set release of like, oh, it's a strategy. This is a one-time 900 gold investment, and it's optional. Like it doesn't feel like it's a big deal.
Yeah, but you go out on bounties and you access it via like it's basically a flight path from World of Warcraft, even though it's a horse and not a flying mount.
Yes. There's entertaining dialogue about the horse. Those of you that watch the Slissa video will have seen it. And really, like, when we talk about the mercenary starting experience, I know that you mentioned this briefly in the intro. What they've learned from all of their prior game modes, they do things here that the other modes wish they could do. There's a really, really great tutorial and on-ramp where it's not like the constructed tutorial where you have 2 hours of forced encounters that you cannot escape from, where you have to learn what a hero power is. You get these battles one at a time, but you can pause in between them after the first map. You can just kind of do whatever you want, but you're probably going to go in the direction the game encourages you to go. They give you free mercs for doing so.
Yeah, you are essentially playing through the main gameplay loop as part of the tutorial. It tells you, hey, go to the travel point. You've got this first bounty. Go to the Barrens and complete the bounty. So you go to the travel point, which you would be doing anyway if you were doing PvE, and you are clearing out the first bounty in the Barrens, which you need to do anyway to unlock the second bounty and unlock the third, because there's 6 per zone, if I'm not mistaken. And you need to progress through, and there's suggested levels for each bounty. So you're just kind of playing the game. You're playing legit Mercenaries PvE to get through the tutorial. And so, I think it's really well designed, because at the end of it, you're just like, oh, cool. I unlocked some Mercenaries. I leveled up the Mercenaries that I have, and I'm on to the second boss of the Barrens. That path is now unlocked for me, while also simultaneously having completed the tutorial and learned how to play the game.
Yep. And the complexity ramps up at a very particular pace. The early mercenaries they get, like you said, they have one ability, but also they're definitely a little bit on the simpler side. And then they give you more units over and over. And then as you get them, you see the ones that they give you later are a little bit more complicated, and they ramp it up a little bit. Not crazy, but a little bit more and a little bit more, and then they guide you to the tavern where you can upgrade your characters a little bit, and they make sure you have the right currency and you learn how to swap portraits. Everything is so well taught in a way that Hearthstone constructed. You get this long tutorial, and then they drop you into the new player ranks. Okay, have fun, and that's kind of it. And Battlegrounds, you get one tutorial match, and that's kind of it. And it's nowhere near the level of guidance that this gives you. But also, this is not a protracted experience. We're talking 20, 30 minutes if you stop and read everything, probably less if you don't. You get packs when you're done, and everything that you do in the tutorial, like you said, that's just then you just keep going, and that is the video game.
Yeah. It's like, well, when do we start playing the game? Well, that's the best part. You already have.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. See, you see what I did there. You're picking up what I'm laying
did.
down.
Yeah. The structure is really, really well done, and something that a lot of the things that they can do here are because of the structure of Mercenaries, as well as the nature of the combat being non-random, non-variable. They can let AI and guided prompts and all that do a lot more work to help make sure the player's having a good time.
Yeah. Yeah. So, part of what I liked wrapping my head around and getting an understanding of is what it was like progressing through a specific bounty. Because like you click on that first one, what is it, Hogger? I think is the first boss.
Well, the
Hogger.
first one is a nameless Quillbore, ferocious Quillbore.
Oh, that's right. That's right. But when you click on any of them, you're then taken to a map where you have to fight through procedurally generated encounters to work your way up to the boss that has the loot. This is where you're going to encounter treasures, which was surprising, but they work very much like
Slay the Spire. It's Slay the Spire.
It's a game I've never played. Yes, exactly.
Wait. What? What'd you say?
We've been over this. I don't want to have this conversation right now.
I'm still surprised. Okay.
It looks ugly, man. I don't like the way it looks.
I'm resisting the urge for my favorite comeback here because I don't think you look ugly, but that was where my heart went immediately. And for the next major holiday we have, I'm buying that for you on whatever digital platform.
I own it. I own it on Steam, and I have Game Pass. So
I'll buy it again. I'll buy it on mobile. It's on mobile. You'll have it in your pocket. You can't do anything about it. It's like Slay the Spire, where you get a map, and the map, like, you see generally what's going to happen, but not specifically. Each tile that has an enemy encounter, it tells you, is that going to be a red, a green, or a blue, a protector, fighter, caster? The colors are going to be the things that people say most of the time, except for maybe the hardcore PvPers. I don't know, but I'm just going to say the colors because red beats green, green beats blue, blue beats red, whatever. You get to see
you got it right.
Which color the main enemy is going to be. And then sometimes there are other tiles that are like random encounter or spirit healer, resurrect a character, and you just kind of move up the map one at a time. And after you clear each encounter, you get a bonus for that map only for one of your characters that's usually unbalanced in a PvP setting, but you get it in PvE because you get to be broken. That's kind of
in theory. I mean, you could also potentially try and take on a bounty with under-level mercenaries and have a really hard time.
Yes.
Fail if you're coming in too low
and those,
under the bar.
Did you try the heroics at all, by the way? You tried the heroic levels?
No. That was something
I'm not messing around.
I'm glad to hear that. Because there's unique rewards if you clear it on heroic. Like there's a whole new chest, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I want a challenge. I like the PvE enough that I want a challenge. I think I got to the point that you got to sooner where I was like, oh, I'm enjoying this. And I don't want to burn. I kind of want to just experience this on my actual account now at this point and keep the things that I'm unlocking and retain my progress. I got heroic unlocked and I was like, do I want to do that? I think I'll wait. Until this is live and I'm invested in my actual Mercenaries collection and progress. So yeah, I didn't do that, but I'm glad to hear that it is actually difficult because clearing the Barrens was very easy. On the regular mode. in my experience. So that's good to know. But yeah, so you'll encounter treasures and all of that. But what I was just happy to learn about just how the hell it works. Like if your mercenaries are going to take damage and they could potentially die. I was like, okay, well, all right. So if they're taking damage, you have to fight. You have to go through multiple encounters to get to the boss. Is the damage persistent? No. The answer is no. If a mercenary takes damage but does not die and you clear that encounter, they full heal for the next encounter. However, if they die, you cannot use them for the rest of that map. You got to go all the way and beat the boss, and you don't get that mercenary again unless, as you mentioned, there's a spirit healer, which there's a chance there'll be a spirit healer on a bounty. And if you decide to go down the path that has one, once you reach it, then you can resurrect mercenaries that have died.
It's a random character. You don't get to choose. You just hit the slot, and then one of your dead mercs comes back alive. Right. You do not get to pick which one it is.
Right. Sorry, if you had multiple mercenaries. I was just so good, I didn't have more than one dead at a time, so I didn't notice that.
Do some heroics, Garrett.
It's not random if you don't lose people. I'm doing a bit. Yeah, it's regular mode Barons it's really easy. Like once you get the hang of it.
Audio listeners, can you hear me stare at him? Can you hear the stare?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely a challenge there, but also you do get this kind of feeling of choosing your destiny. And there were a couple of runs I had where what I liked about the heroics more, because this is something that I think you mentioned in our show chat. You wanted the runs to go longer because it's cool when you get a bunch of treasure that work together. Heroics have extra rows.
That was Joss. That was not me. I want to be very specific that was Joss.
Okay. Right.
Because I remember reading that message going, oh, Joss seems like she's enjoying this. If a concern is I want more treasures because I want to feel more broken, and that's when you pointed out, oh, hey, if you do heroic, there's actually more encounters.
Yeah, it was really cool. I had a run that I was doing with my boy Guff and some nature combo stuff, and then I got like 3 different treasures that all gave me more nature damage, and then I was just like soloing people.
I could not get away from Cariel Xyrella. Like I loved their holy synergies so much. They were just fun. Although I really enjoyed the Uther deck on the PvP account we got to play with. I think it was the very first combo. Pre-made. That was cool.
Holy combo. Yeah. With Anduin and Uther and Tyrion. Yeah.
That was I'm feeling the call of the light. Hat. Justice.
Garrett can't even stop being a paladin in Mercenaries.
No, I can't. I can't do it. I'm sorry. They need. Hey, I can be Death Knights here. I didn't have a chance to try that, so maybe they'll get me. Again, if they add anything but Death Knights next as a class in standard Hearthstone, I think I just quit. I'll see you later. But
I don't believe you. Yes. And yeah, so and the thing about these bounties as well, your characters level and their permanent levels and their progression persists. You gain the experience from doing these maps and doing these fights or from doing PvP, but their experiences and their levels are permanent and their stats get larger and it's significant.
And it doesn't happen every single time, right? Every level does not yield more health, more attack, but there are certain levels where it yields one or the other.
I wasn't paying that close attention. What you said sounds possible, but I think I remembered usually it was 1 point to at least one of them, but I wouldn't.
That might have been
say
it.
That under oath.
When I noticed it was exceptionally impactful when I got more attack value.
That was definitely less frequent. That the attack scales a lot less than the health does. The health scales a bunch, but the attack, you're talking like the base mercenary will have like 2 or 3, and the final version will have like 10 or 11, something like that. It's not nearly as significant. It happens way less often. But the leveling also unlocks abilities. They get more stats, and you can absolutely power level the way that you do in WoW. Because when you open a new mercenary, they're going to be at level 1. But if you just go in a high level bounty, you keep that level 1 mercenary on the bench, they're going to gain a bunch of experience right away from just clearing a couple bounties, even if you don't finish the map.
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack just in the way like you progress through PvE. But we've been dancing around combat, so let's just have a quick chat about that, because you mentioned the red, the green, the blue, the protector, the fighter, the caster, and these are the 3 types of mercenaries that we're going to have, and there is a damage multiplier mechanic between them that you quickly mentioned, but it's essentially rock, paper, scissors. There's literally 3 options. So red, protector, does double damage to green, the fighter, the green, does double damage to caster, the blue, and then caster, the blue, does double damage to red, the protector.
Yes. When attacking. If it's on defense, it does not double the damage.
Okay. Here's where we need to get technical, because attack is basically a keyword in Mercenaries.
Right. It's so offensively versus defensively.
That's a better way to put it. Yeah.
Yes. So if you have a blue minion and it attacks a green minion, it doesn't take double damage, even though it hit and they traded damage. Whereas if the green attacked the blue would take double, because it's the defender never receives double damage.
Yeah. So this is an important thing. I'm getting weirdly hung up on attack. Once we all understand this, once Mercenaries isn't new anymore, we'll never need to have this conversation again. But attack is very specific in Mercenaries because, as we mentioned before, and as you've seen, if you watch the reveal stream or Solicitor or Crip or anyone else that got to do an early video, if you watch their videos, the Mercenaries have an ability bar with a maximum of 3 abilities to choose from. Attack, like very specifically, the word attack is an important keyword or term, might be a better way to put it, in Mercenaries. If an ability says attack in its text, it means the Merc is going to do physical combat with its target mercenary, or if you're doing PvE, there's lots of monsters you're going to encounter that are not technically mercenaries. And so that means that suddenly the attack value of what you are running your mercenary into is important, because if it's 3, your Merc is going to take 3 damage in that attack. It's like retaliation, essentially. There are going to be
like attacking in any of the other modes, right? Like it's in Battlegrounds or in Constructed, when they bump, then they deal damage to each other. Yeah,
it's just that once a minion's on the board in regular Hearthstone, if you're attacking with it, it always behaves that way. The only time you're going to have like non-physical encounters are with like battle cries or triggers and trigger effects and that type of stuff. But because your mercenaries are going to hopefully live more than one turn, there's going to be a lot of back and forth. And so there are other abilities that you can pick on most mercenaries that do not say attack, but still have like a damage or figure associated with them. And you can basically think of those as ranged attacks or spells. And they do not result in an exchanged damage. And they also go past things like taunt, should that come into play.
Yep. If you shoot something with a lightning bolt, then you don't have to hit the guy with the shield.
Yeah. But it seems unique to Mercenaries to me. Like I get that, we have similar effects in Constructed Hearthstone, but yeah, this was something that I got it immediately once I actually played with it and realized, okay, that's, again, your starter Mercs, like Cariel tends to be attacking a lot, and Xyrella tends to be casting off spells, and so Cariel's taking a lot of exchanged damage from like the physical attacks, and Xyrella is only taking damage when someone attacks her directly. And so I very quickly picked up on this, but it's an important distinction to make.
Yep, it's not quite as intuitive with the idea of the most important game action in normal Hearthstone of attacking one minion with another minion, for that to be keyworded, but it's kind of something that we just take for granted with the green circle in normal Hearthstone that you don't have here. But it's the same thing as like an elven archer doesn't care about taunt. You just
the most important interaction in regular Hearthstone is going face, and you literally can't go face in Mercenaries. There's no face to go. Or if you look at it another way, there's 3 faces to go. I think Rexar would prefer to look at it as there are 3 faces that must be smoked.
Yes. Hopefully no taunt. Taunt is cheap.
You want to talk about speed rating?
Yes, I do. So speed rating. This is, I think, the thing that really makes Hearthstone stand out from other character battlers, as we'll call them. Because other genres, it's either your turn, then my turn, then your turn, then my turn, or some other method of evaluating it. Speed is something that's inherent to each ability, where it just has a number floating above the button, and the lower the number, the sooner it happens. So each side, it's 3 on 3 usually. Each side picks their abilities, and then you take all the abilities from both sides and you order them from smallest to largest. So if my team is 1, 2, 3, and your team is 4, 5, 6, all three of mine happen first. If my team is 1, 7, 7, and your team is 4, 5, 6, it's my 1, then your 4, then your 5, then your 6, then my sevens. It just goes smallest to largest.
And if
And there
there's
are
a
a lot of
tie, then it's randomized. If you have two sevens,
right.
then it essentially flips a coin and decides which attack happens first. This reminds me very much of when Battlegrounds was new, and we were trying to be like, what the hell determines the order of attack? Because it was not immediately clear to me after an entire BlizzCon weekend of playing a lot of Battlegrounds. And then eventually we learned,
There are people that I talked to like a year later that hadn't realized the player with most minions always attacks first in BGs.
Yes, I
But
too
like,
had that experience.
yeah. So with Mercs, it's printed right on the label. You see what the speed rating is, but there are a lot of abilities that mess with speed. It is not
There
meant to
are.
be a fixed stable number that's always this thing. There are Malfurion is like your nature abilities next turn costs X less or like are X faster. I think it's 1, and then when you level it's 2, something like that. They all for all of your Mercs get faster. So then they show in green, and then they're lower numbers, and then they happen faster in the turn, and you get to keep going with those. There are other abilities that make your opponent's abilities slower, and then they show up with the red numbers, and then they go later in the turn. This is where a lot of the complexity in the game comes down, and you can, if you spend a long time, you can figure out how combat's going to play out. But there are a lot of variables here and moving pieces, and uh, a lot of times I was forgetting to account for the fact that my opponent's uh, monsters or mercs would attack and they would die because I was counting my damage but not their damage.
Oh yeah, dude.
It's hard to figure out what's gonna happen.
The
Yeah.
first time I thought of that and did take it into account, and my devious plan went off without a hitch, I felt like the biggest brain nerd on the planet. Like I felt like I couldn't be
It's
stopped.
so cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is cool. This is one of those things like this is only gonna be interesting this week. The second we all have had an hour with Mercenaries, gonna be like, yeah, of course, that's just the game. But like right now, we only get to have this conversation once, really. So I'm enjoying.
It's clever.
I'm enjoying getting.
It's a clever way to deal with things. Yeah. It's
It's
I
like manipulating
like it a lot.
time, which is not something I'm used to doing in Hearthstone, except with like secrets. I mean, even then, you can only have so much control.
This is kind of the mana cheating equivalent in Mercs, though, right? Because you have some characters that like want to just do more than they should be able to faster. And one of the things that I think is important to note, and that is was a big relief to me, is that if you target something and it dies because they have a faster ability or another character has a faster ability, the thing that you chose to do doesn't just not happen. It picks a different target randomly. So, like, if you attack a minion, then your other minion moves faster and kills it, you just hit something else. It's not what you choose, but at least it's better than just having the ability vanish.
Yeah, it's a great way to put it. And so everything we just talked about too, like queuing up your attacks and the order of how attacks are going to play out because of speed rating, you can see all of this on both sides of the board in PvE. So you can queue up all of your attacks. There's still a ready button, and until you hit that ready button, the attacks are not going to happen. You can then go and change. You can change your mind. You can switch what abilities go where and what attacks happen in what order. And once everything's queued up, it's going to you can mouse over the enemy minions, or well, I guess they're not mercenaries, the enemy monsters, and you can see what attacks that they have queued up. And you can also see it'll show you their speed ratings and what order they're going to attack in. And if anything has a question mark, it means it's tied with the speed of at least one other ability. And so then it's going to be randomized. This
By the
brings
way,
us, well, yeah.
this was one of my least favorite parts. That there was always a feeling I had of, do I play quickly and do what I want to do, or do I take my time and spend each turn mousing over all of their minions multiple times to put together the master plan? Because I like the idea of the master plan, but it's pretty involved and it really slows down the flow of the game as opposed to chunk, 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 and turn, which is how I usually would rather play. Some of this will come with knowledge, of course, but you can't really have pre-existing knowledge of random mobs in the barrens unless you play
Well,
those bounties over and over again.
they do. A lot of the trash, to borrow a term from World of Warcraft. It's the same throughout all the barons. You're going to see the same Quillbore over and over again. You're going to see the same Scorpion with the bleed effect, or was it the Scorpion with the bleed effect, or was the snake? Doesn't matter.
The pit snake.
You're going to see snakes. You're going to see the same Scorpion. You're going to see the same Quillbore over and over again. And so you will start to just pattern recognition and probably recognize the attack icons. By the way, if you are an old school WoW TCG player, keep an eye on those attack icons and the ability icons for your mercenaries. There are some deep cuts for card illustrations being reused in there. So
there are throwbacks for sure. Yeah, and like it's not a huge deal. I always had this feeling of like I knew I could optimize more and I was choosing not to because it was less fun. But it was always like I either hunted down the info and spent a lot of time like absorbing, or I chose to ignore it and then felt like I could have probably done that combat better. And the information overload, they're giving us a game with probably as much complexity as BG's or constructed Hearthstone. Like they're giving us a lot without the 7 years of communal knowledge, and we're all just kind of starting at the same point with awareness of how much more there is to learn. And the information overload up front can be a little dizzying, and that's where I kind of noticed it in encounters where I was constantly either do I mouse over and see what's going on, small thing, but like let me slow down the flow, or do I just go? I usually just went, but it's over time. I'm sure this will mitigate itself.
yeah, and in the beginning, I think it is so approachable that you really don't need to worry about it as long as you have a passing idea of your own synergies with your own mercs. You're going to clear the barons just fine. You're going to need to eventually mouse over, read, and make a strategy, especially in those heroic modes, if they're as difficult as you're mentioning, on top of when you get to later zones, like you get out of the barons and things start getting high level. That's where I started getting like properly excited, was thinking about, it's going to take me a good amount of time to clear all of the PvE that Mercenaries is going to have to offer at launch. And realizing what a puzzle and strategy game clearing those later boards and those heroic modes are going to be. And so I guess I'm excited for both. Like I'm excited to do my first run through where I get to kind of just smork my way through and lightly think about my Mercenaries synergy. And then I'm looking forward to having to really take my time and arduously progress through the heroic modes and mouse over every single thing and like try and map out my perfect Charlie Day Red Yarn map room combo. Sorry, Luigi.
Pepe Sylvia combo. Yeah. So, and there is something to be said. The word grind is going to come up when people talk about this game. But there's something to be said about a mode you can invest time into where you can spend a bunch of time and then it has some value to you. And Mercs does that. There's going to be an element where you're like, man, I'm spending so much time on this. But another element where you're like, man, I'm spending so much time on this. Where you kind of, in some senses, you have to, but in other senses, you get to. And really, part of the joy of the Hearthstone experience is doing the same thing over and over again. Things are slightly different because of the variants, but then you still get to do your thing and it's cool. And then maybe you get thrown another freebie pack and you get a new mercenary, then you get to do it slightly differently all over again, and then you run it back. Like it's I don't know. It's there is value to a solo mode that you get to keep coming back to, and it's different enough that you want to keep doing it. And also the upgrade loop, very addictive. I want to get those coins so I can make my mercs better. I want to do that a lot.
Yeah. I'm drawn to grindy games. I mean, that's why I'm here. Like the reason I like Blizzard ever got their hooks in me was because of World of Warcraft. I started with Warcraft 3. I love StarCraft, but World of Warcraft, that's where I was like, all right, here we go. This is now a part of my personality. So I like grinds. There's always grind is not an inherently bad thing to me. It is like many things. It needs to be balanced properly. And my early experience with Mercenaries is that the grind feels fun. It feels like it's at a good balance. We'll see if it stays that way as I progress through. But this is probably a good time to also talk about PvP, because we just we're coming off the back of talking about how you can mouse over the enemy mobs, trash, whatever you want to call it, in PvE and see what attacks they're about to do and the speed rating at which they're about to come in at. You can't see any of that in PvP. You can only see your selections and the order of how your mercenaries will attack. It does not take into account what your opponent is doing, and you can't see what abilities they are queuing up, which makes all the sense in the world, because you would both just be sitting there waiting for the other one to lock things in so that you can make counter picks based on your opponent's selection.
Yep. They kind of have to do it this way, but player mastery and knowledge is going to be just as important, if not more so, than the other modes. And
It hurts my brain to think about.
Yeah. And they gave us 2 accounts for the early access, and I think one of them was more of proof of concept than anything. We got a tutorial account that starts at nothing, and then a fully maxed account with a bunch of pre-built comps for PvP. These high-end comps, I had trouble figuring out what was happening in combo with my opponent's units and with my units. I didn't quite know what was going on. It gets involved. Like, really, really involved. And, if you have to know what your opponent is probably going to do without being able to mouse over it, that's a big ask. I expect
It
there will
is.
be a point in the future where you can mouse over and, like, at least see what their ability stable is, not what they've chosen, but what the options are, so you don't have to remember it all. Um, but it's still really skill testing. For now, it seems like the memorization part in addition to the strategy part.
Yeah, having 3 options of abilities per mercenary. It's going to be 3 mercenaries on board unless you're winning and multiples are dead, or you think you're winning, depending on what mercenary isn't dead yet.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It is an absolute a lot. And you know, our experience, you know, they certainly tried to educate us to the best of their ability, but there's only so much you can do. So yeah, I'm looking forward to taking it slow and learning things as I go. Eventually, yeah, there will be established metas. There will be combos that we become very aware of, and I think the knowledge gap is going to shrink. But out the gate, PvP seems really dense. Really, really dense. But it's also, I guess it's important to remember that they've said that the matchmaking is going to take into account what you have at your disposal and try and match you up with similar players too. So it's like you could engage in low-level PvP, and it won't be nearly as systems deep, or at least abilities deep.
Yeah, and the matchmaking is insane. It's crazy, insane, ridiculous. They've already talked about in the patch notes that were released today. There's going to be a blog about how it works tomorrow. For those of you detail coveters, there's going to be math. I hope you like math because there's going to be a lot of it. But the high level version that I got from talking with the devs and reading over the patch notes and whatever, the matchmaking is it's not so much about rating, it's about the power levels of your party, combined levels, the roles that you have. If you queue with a bunch of reds, if you queue with a 6 red party, there is no chance that you end up facing a 6 blue party and get taken apart because it cares about the roles that you're bringing. It cares about the levels of your heroes. And most importantly, if it looks for long enough and it cannot find a party of appropriate level that's an appropriate match for your party, it will queue you into an AI with a generated party to match the power level of what you're bringing with roles that are appropriate for the fight. And PvE and PvP versus an AI are not the same, right? You can't mouse over the abilities. It's timed, and they're not going to go easy on you. At least that's what we were told. But also, you're never gonna wait that long for a match, and the purpose here, like they've learned from all the other modes, you do not want to have players feel like they are speed bumps. You don't want people to get run over by someone that's clearly spent more or is more invested. You want it to be a fair fight every time. And so they've taken that so far as to say, if we can't find you a fair fight against a player, we will make a player for you to make a fair fight. And that still counts for your rating, still counts for your daily bounties, whatever. But you don't have to worry about going into PvP with lower level mercs and getting pay to win. There's no pay to win here. It matches your level, it matches your composition, and mercenaries are not based. The power level is not based on rarity. Legendaries aren't better. They're more complex, but they're not better. You're gonna face a party. Might be different characters, but it'll be about the same power level as yours, no matter what you do. We're hopeful that big promise is met. If it's not, then they'll need to tweak it. But if it is, then they might have finally found a solution to a bunch of matchmaking issues that have been found in other modes.
Yeah, yeah. It's something I think a lot of us who dabble in other games are now very familiar with from Pokemon Unite, except the AI in that game, it's obvious as hell because you can just roll them over.
Yeah.
They're not great. They're not great. But yeah, again, I had so many concerns, and that's just another thing that kind of chipped away at yet another concern that was like, well, how pay to win is this? Now, as I mentioned, I don't think I'm that interested in PvP. It's not calling my name at the moment, but it's good to know that all of those systems are there to make it not just approachable, but like a fair experience.
There are players. Remember that moment you had where you masterminded the perfect turn? There are players that are going to chase that experience against other people over and over and over again, and that's who PvP is for. And what I love about the mode, among many things, is that if that's your jam, that's there. And if you're like us and you want to play PvE over and over, that's there. And they're both fully fleshed out and fully realized. And you don't have to do both. You can do one or the other. It's two modes in one, right? And that's a pretty rare thing where we get an answer to the Hearthstone PvE question. And also, while you're there, a basically non random, super information dense multiplayer mode on top of it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. Now, my only thought is, oh no, what if I want a PvP because I'm like PvE so much that I want my daily PvP rewards because I want more Mercenaries currency? But I'm not sure that's necessarily a bad thing if I'm invested enough in Mercenaries that I feel drawn to play a side of it that I'm not as invested in. Time will tell. Somebody check in with me later to see if I get to that point.
I mean, like that would be the Tavern Brawl equivalent. And I think we know where you're standing in Tavern Brawls now, but there was a period where you were doing them because it was worth it for the pack.
No, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time. That's a button I haven't clicked on in a long, long time.
But you did. There was a long time where you did that for your pack. It was one and done. It was fine, whatever. You'd spend a little bit of time. And there were times in early access where it was strange hours of the night. I was sure I got paired into an AI because I knew who was online because I added everybody in the early access to my friends list. They were all asleep because it was not a good time to be awake for a normal human. And I got an AI, and it was a quick match. It was under a minute. I played it out, and I got my win, and I moved on. And I imagine for those of us that just aren't all that invested in PvP, that'll happen a lot, where you get an opponent within a minute, you put up a decent enough fight, but then you get your daily win, and then you go about your business.
Yeah, it's this whole thing seems to be very well fleshed out. Mercenaries as a whole seems to be very well fleshed out. It is very deep, and they seem to have covered all of the glaring concerns that I had, like the big ones. So, yeah, we'll have to see. Now would probably be as good a time as ever to discuss the economy.
Speaking of glaring concerns that people have,
yeah, this one is somewhat still present for me. I'm still kind of concerned about this, but it is an unknown because I am not sure how much I am going to want to seek out, like completing my Mercenaries collection. If that becomes something I'm interested in, or I want to get very specific Mercenaries and I don't want to pay for it, suddenly, yeah, this becomes a concern for me. But let's talk about it, because one of the big question marks was like packs, just in general. Like, what is the value of a Mercenaries pack was a question all three of us have had as we sat there being reminded by pop-ups leading up to this that we could go pre-order packs for a mode we don't understand the monetary value of.
I think it's a question we still have.
To a certain degree, yeah.
I've
It
opened a
seems...
bunch of Mercs packs. They give you a bunch of Mercs packs for free, and they feel cool to open, but a little weird.
They
right?
feel a
Because
little light
they
to me.
they have all of the Hearthstone flashes, right, with the rarity flashes and the number of coins and whatever, and you get the free Merc each pack. But like, it feels like if a pack is a physical object, it feels like that someone just shoved a bunch of coins in a magic pack, and it feels just kind of strange. Like that's the wrong shape. So
it is a nature of how Mercenaries works though, right? Because there's only, what is it, 57, 51, 50 some odd Mercs at launch. And that's it. So if you have 5 items in a pack, if we got 5 Mercenaries per pack, you'd wrap it up real quick. Real quick. So by nature of how Mercenaries functions, yeah, if you're having a pack-based game, it's got to break down somehow, and this is how it's breaking down. That said, there so many times where the coins just felt like nothing. It'd be like you'd hover over it and you get the legendary glow and you're like, oh, I got 2 legendary glows in this pack. And then I flip them over and it's like 30 Lich King coins. Okay, cool. I mean, hey, my name's Garrett Weinzerl. I have an emotional reaction when someone puts Arthas in front of me. What does that mean? Flip over into the crafting collection menu. How much is the Lich King to craft? 500. Ooh. Well, that doesn't feel too good. Yeah. This is my least hype. The packs don't. Yeah. And I'm not really sure how you get around it though. Is my thing. So like, I don't think packs feel good. I also do not have a good solution to make them feel better because of the nature of Mercenaries.
So the thing that in the packs that I do like a lot is that each pack is basically, it's not a guaranteed Merc period, but it's a guaranteed Merc asterisk where the slot for there's one slot per pack where it picks a rarity, and then if you don't have all the Mercs of that rarity, it gives you one you don't have already. So if it's a legendary, which I think your first pack is guaranteed to be a legendary, so
It said so in our interview, and that was my experience in the test account we got to play on.
Yep. And so it'll give you a legendary you don't own. And same for if you hit an epic, same if you hit a rare. And there's due protection on that slot in the card packs. And that means that you're just, every pack you open, you're pretty likely for the first bunch of packs to get a character that you didn't have already. You need the coins to upgrade the abilities. The coin farming, you can take tasks for that character on the bounty board, and that'll give you coins towards their abilities. But the big question is, how long will it take to level all the abilities and get the coins for that? And that's a big question. I think that's where pre-order comes into play and bundles come into play. You're not paying for more, you're paying for faster. You're paying for variety and you're paying for get this over with, as opposed to grinding out, much like constructed Hearthstone. And the packs are a little weird, and the coins feel strange, and sometimes you'll open a cosmetic portrait, which will be cool because the portraits are great, but that's not something that impacts play, and so I don't know how I'm gonna feel when that first happens. I would generally guess that crafting mercenaries is almost always a bad idea. That usually you don't wanna spend the coins crafting, you wanna just open them, but I don't know how frequent the legendaries happen, I don't know how many bundles or packs I'm gonna buy. Um, but 500 coins, that's a lot of abilities. I don't really wanna give up 500 legendary coins to craft something that I know I'm gonna open as soon as I hit the next pity timer.
Yeah. It's that breakdown, the fact that the coins are specific to each merc is what doesn't feel good to me. Like, and I get it. I just don't think I like the reality of it. Like, I don't think I like the reality of the concession that this game was built in such a way. Although I don't know, this starts to get off the beaten path, and I almost want to have a conversation about how games are built for profit, and when does that go too far? This starts to get into an uncomfortable area for me. So I'm like, well,
this is
standard Hearthstone. We have Dust, which is ubiquitous and you can be used for anything, and there's a lot more of it that you need to use up to craft a legendary. But here it's just like, oh well, if I want Lich King and I don't have Lich King coins, better open more packs and hope I get those coins. It's I use the term space points. Like it's space points. It is like
Merc bucks, right?
It is convoluted, fake, made up currency for the sake of the economy of this game mode.
Kind of, sort of. I don't think, if we look really closely at the Dust system and we ask people about it, I don't think you'll find too many people defending it. It exists because you need something to turn cards you don't want into cards you do want. Because without that, then you end up with Magic Arena, which ends up being really expensive and I'm out of a wild couch because I need lands, and that's always just how it goes. When you look at Mercenaries, if it was a blank currency that you could use for anything, the tavern would be overwhelming. Paging through mercenaries, all of them glowing, you pick whatever you want and you can make whatever decisions you want. I would not upgrade any because I don't know which one I really want. I think the merc specific currencies are a good idea. Just the process of acquisition, this is where, again, the word grind comes back. It feels like it's going to take either a bunch of time or a bunch of money, like Constructed Hearthstone. And the question is, which one do you want to spend? For PvE focused players like us, I expect that time will be more valuable because getting more abilities and variety is just not going to be as necessary when we get to choose our own difficulty and pace and level of engagement. Whereas if you're in PvP, I think the likelihood of wanting more variety to try different builds quickly and making sure that any character you unlock is not under leveled or whatever, I think you're going to be more likely to want more of the coins to make sure you can unlock more stuff. But with PvE being such a primary focus, it doesn't feel quite as predatory because I don't feel a strong need to buy anything for a mode that I'm just playing by myself.
That's a good point too. I also though got hung up because afterwards I was like, okay, I liked Mercenaries. Maybe I want to go pre-order. And I looked at that Lich King pre-order. Hi, Garrett here. If you didn't know, I'm an Arthas fanboy. And I went, well, no, actually, you know what? No, I don't know what the synergies are going to be with Lich King. Like once I got my head wrapped around playing Mercs, and I realized that like with the starter mercenaries, again, I talked going back to that Cariel and Xyrella, like holy ability synergies. I was like, well, damn, well, that's a thing. I don't know what those are for Lich King. And I don't know if I'm going to like the way that not only Lich King plays, but Lich King and the mercenaries that should go with Lich King play, or if I'm even going to get them. So how much is it really worth to like guarantee I get myself a Lich King plus, 50 packs on the back end? I think that was the pre-order. So yeah, again, I was kind of paralyzed by indecision, but the other side of the coin is what you said. And that is a good point, that if you're coming to us primarily from a PvE side of things, which I'm definitely going to be, at least here from the onset, you maybe don't need to be as worried. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see what like horribly unsynergistic mercenary squads, how they fare in the higher ranks of PvE.
Yeah. It also depends how many like freebie pack quests that they throw in and legendary quests or whatever, how quickly the task board gets you to where you want to go. It's hard to say because this is something that can't be answered in early access. It can only be answered through experience and seeing what's going on. And also, this is likely the knob that they're most likely to tweak if they need to, where they can always make this better if they need to, because BG's didn't really have an economy, period. Not even that didn't have an economic problem. You didn't have to spend anything, and then they had to shoehorn, like, they had to lock a portrait or two to find any way to make money off the mode. That's not gonna be the case with Mercenaries. They know the business model here, but also the amount of stuff they've learned from standard Hearthstone economy, they can apply pretty quickly to Mercs and nudge some levers and give you more coins per pack or find ways to get you more packs or do something else. I think it's more fixable because there are more levers to pull.
I agree with that. That's a good assessment. just this is the one thing where I after getting hands on, I was just like, this.
It's not going to be pay to win, but it's I still don't know what I'm paying for. I
Pay
know
to
it's
do
not win rate.
cooler stuff faster.
I mean, pay for. I've always called Hearthstone. It's not free to play. It's free to patient, and that's kind of what Constructed is, and that's kind of what Mercs is. Where if you play a lot, you'll get whatever you want. But you have to play a lot, and if you want to speed up that process, probably going to spend some money. And it remains to be seen where on that chart that Mercs falls.
I am anxious to see how this portion of it plays out. I have a feeling there's going to be some hardcore math posts pretty early on into everything now that this is out into the world, and I have a feeling it's going to be controversial.
Yeah. Well, there are going to be people that bought Diamond Lich King, and then they're going to get a mercenary, but also a golden Lich King portrait in a pack from their pre-order. And they're going to say, I was cheated out of something. And I don't think that's actually true, but people are going to say that. And opening cosmetics, I think, is going to be a touchy subject because, on the one hand, the cosmetics in this game are beautiful. The diamond portraits are awesome. They're so cool. They're really, really, really amazing. But also, when you open one, it looks cool, but it doesn't change your gameplay experience. And so I think that's going to be more of a mixed bag than they might be anticipating. I don't know how I'm going to feel about it. I expect to be happy immediately, and then once it sets in that I am happy that I lost an opportunity cost of more stuff that does stuff, that I'll probably be like,
Yeah. That's where I was so reminded of Pokemon playing through the combat that I was like, oh, yeah, I wish I could just kind of set off and catch mercenaries.
Yes.
It's I wish there was a game, like a more, I don't know, gamified way of accumulating mercs. So we'll
and it's Mercs 1.0 maybe in the future. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. This is the part that still feels very weird to me and didn't land as a resounding success that completely changed my preconceived notions of what Mercenaries is going to be. The economy is very convoluted and expensive if you're impatient.
Yeah. The intro experience did alleviate my fears. Getting into PvE Mercs was really, really easy. Just where we go from here, I don't know.
Yeah, that's the big one. That's the big one. So, any other thoughts kind of on the technical aspects of Mercenaries before we talk about the known launch day bugs and then take a question or two before we wrap up?
I want to play. Can I play?
Yeah, can I play? I know this is coming out when it's live, but we're recording it before it goes live so we can post this for you all immediately.
No, it's coming out when it goes live on desktop. I'm going to be at work, and we know that mobile patch is not coming out on time. So I anticipate maybe I'll listen to us talking about the mode to sate the urge while I'm at work.
Oh, goodness. Oh, okay, buddy. Listen, I'll send you some screenshots of my board, and you can tell me what attacks you'd like to make.
Oh, yeah, that'll make that better. That's definitely what's going to, yeah. Hey, if I talk about a restaurant I really want to go to and I'm really hungry and then you send me pictures of the food, that definitely makes me happier.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
definitely it.
I should rethink this considering you are in New York where my favorite cocktails in existence reside. Go to Death
Now
and
I'm
Co.
hungry
Hat.
and want to play Mercs.
Go.
Thanks, Garrett.
All right, so we got the 21.4 patch notes, which mostly just said Mercs are here. There's not too much here of note that you don't already know. There are, however, known launch day bugs. This is a post that went up on the official forums. Some of the more noteworthy launch day bugs is that most daily and weekly quests cannot be completed in Mercenaries, only quests that require you to win a certain number of games in any mode or take a number of turns. So be aware of this. This is not affecting the other modes of Hearthstone that have always been here that complete those quests. It's specifically a Mercenaries problem. There are also a few treasure abilities that will incorrectly ignore taunt when they shouldn't. At the moment, it's Ogre Warmaul, Hysteria, Mass Hysteria, To the Death, Blinding Rage 3, and the Beast Within 1 through 5. We now need to worry about ranges of abilities.
I think that's all of the Beast Within, but specifically a problem with Blinding Rage 3 is hilarious.
Yes. There's also mention that Rexar's Mama Bear's Claws equipment does not buff mercenaries that are played before Rexar or 2 Rexars left during the placement phase in Mercenaries. There is a workaround. You can simply play Rexar before and to the left of any beast mercenaries you want to buff with that equipment.
Well, that's specific.
Yeah. Also, there's a performance bug when playing mercenaries for what they consider longer periods, around 1.5 to 2 hours, which will cause lag and performance slowdowns, especially in devices with less RAM. So me with like an iPad 2, probably going to have some problems.
Yeah, this is also what happens with BGs. I think it seems to be an issue with games where the combat plays itself out. I'm not sure exactly where the root of the bug is. I know they've been working on it for a while, but basically every hour swipe it away and reopen. Sure. Okay.
Yeah, which I think will burn by faster than you might think, especially if you're really working your way through the PvE. 4 hours went by real quick when I was doing my testing.
The just one more round is strong.
And again, it's PvE. You can walk away. I can be enjoying Hearthstone. Again, PvE. There is a timer in PvP. The fuse will appear.
Yeah. Don't do this in PvP. You'll
Yes. But Creedy goes, hey, come see the cute thing the dog is doing. I can go see the cute thing that the dog is doing. If I'm not playing on my phone, which I almost never am playing on my phone. So yeah. That's nice. Anyways, those are the known bugs. Got a link to it in the show notes. TheAngryChicken.com. Look for the episode 437 post. Show notes are always linked at the bottom. It's a Google Docs link. So, anyways, before we go, had a couple of questions from our patron Discord because they knew that we played. This was a cool summit because we got to admit that we went, but that was kind of it.
Well, this is maybe one of the less well-enforced embargoes that I've seen. I think people definitely all pushed the boundaries in different ways and talked about the moat more than I expected them to, especially on social media.
Yeah, now that I think about it,
but
when I went to Ashes, they were like, yeah, you can post that you're here. That's it, though.
Yeah.
And we didn't know it was the Ashes Summit at the time.
Yeah. No, we were invited to the Merc Summit, and then Ben Lee during the summit was like, you can tell people if you had a good time or not. And I don't think that maybe that was part of the PR briefing, but who's going to tell the game director no? And then there were definitely tweets from a lot of people like Froden. It was like, I don't know if this is going to be streamable mode, but it was better than I expected it to be, and I've been playing it a bunch. And Slissa and Regis and all got into conversations about it. I was like, I didn't know we could do that yet. But I think the hype has grown rather organically, and people just couldn't stop themselves from talking about it, and I think that's cool.
Remind me to tell you a thing I don't want to talk about on air.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not super scandalous, everybody, but it's just a funny thing that I don't want to get into right now. I would tell you. I would work you up right now. I'd be like, oh, it's super scandalous, and you can't know if it was, but it's not. Anyways, from our Discord.
Good alibi.
Yeah. Lord Commander wants to know what our favorite mercenary was in our early time with this mode, to which I will just yell and shout from the rooftops, Xyrella. I loved playing with Xyrella. She starts with Blinding Luminance, which is probably still my favorite ability with as much time as I spent with Mercenaries. It deals damage to an enemy and gives it minus attack for that turn. And it's a really fast speed rating. I think it was like 1 or something. So it was typically going to land before anything else. And so you'd be like neutering the attack value of a key target. And so I just kept spamming that on whatever the problem was on the other side of the board. It starts as deal 2 damage and give -2 attack, but I leveled that thing up immediately and got it to a higher value. And removing attack is impactful in Mercenaries.
Yes. Yes. Though there were a few times where like I removed attack on minions that were definitely casters. But there are other times where there's that initial battle where they teach you that if you remove attack for something that gives attack to something else, that's pretty cool. Um, there are like waterfall effects that can happen from that. And Xyrella was
Oh
just
yeah.
like, yeah.
I,
There was
what we
never
in
a
our
time where it felt
interview,
wrong to bring her.
did I think it was
Yeah.
Joe referred to it as setting up your Rube Goldberg machine and then watching it go, and that's a really
Yes.
really apt way of describing the like the planning phase of combat.
There's and so there was I tried out a couple games in the fully loaded PvP account, and I played a deck that a YouTuber Mercs Theorycrafter Vexz VECZ has been working on. He made a deck he called a composition he called Shadow Aggro, and so Natalie Celine and Vol'jin are both super cool. Natalie Celine, she is holy and shadow. She's got an ability that deals damage, and an ability that heals, and then a flippy ability that's Anathema and Benediction. And after you use it, the shadow one deals damage and then flips to the healing one to the damage to all enemies and then flips to the healing one, heal all friendlies. And then your shadow ability deals more damage if your flippy ability is on shadow, and your healing ability heals more if your flippy ability is on holy. So it's kind of a light and dark flip flop sort of thing. It's really, really cool. And then Vol'jin is he has shadow combo and shadow weakness around his abilities. So like there's a lot of depth with types of damage. The one of his abilities is he gives all enemies shadow weakness and then deals shadow damage to them, where they take 2 extra shadow damage base and then he deals 2 to them, which basically turns out to be 4. And another one that's deal 2 to all enemies shadow combo, deal 6 to all instead if you've used a shadow ability beforehand. So I found myself giving everything shadow weakness and blasting them with the anathema, and then the next turn just setting up the other shadow ability and doing just so the AoE damage. It's pretty fun. It's fun. I enjoyed it. So that was what I had the most fun with so far. But there were so many mercs I didn't get a chance to play with, and I am looking forward to changing that in the near future.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm sure my answers will vary quite heavily the deeper I get into this mode. But and then speaking of this, of getting deeper into this mode, Kilmernock wanted to know: does it feel like we'll end up playing it daily, weekly, or as often as a tavern brawl? Which for me is never. So, what say you, Hat?
It's hard to say, but more than Tavern Brawl, that's easy to say. Um, I envision this being a part of my couch train bedtime more than constructed. I don't feel like I have to worry about deck tracker with this. I can play a game on the train. If it's PvE and I get disconnected, I jump back in and I'm in the same game. Uh, and a single round or two doesn't take all that long. And on the couch, again, untimed, it feels like a really easy thing to play. There will be times when a new expansion comes out. I'm gonna forget about Mercs for a week or 2 or longer, and I'm just gonna jam a lot of constructed because I wanna play more constructed. Um, I don't I feel like this question I think it's a good question, but it's when you go to a buffet, how often are you gonna get the spare ribs? I usually get some spare ribs, but sometimes they got something else that looks great, and I'm gonna get that too. I think the great thing about Mercenary is that you don't have to make this decision ahead of time. You can play it as much or as little as you want. It'll always be relevant if you want to play the PvE. If you want to play the PvP, you'll probably spend a little bit more time and energy getting engaged with it, but you don't have to make up your mind like this because you get to flex it. And I can tell you that this week, it's going to be my main mode. I don't think that'll be the case for every week. I don't think that'll be the case for most weeks. This week, I am going to play a lot of Mercs.
I'm sick of Face Hunter anyway, which is all I've seen the last like 4 days on ladder. So yeah, I'm also no Mercenaries is exciting. I'm legitimately excited enough to play it. It's not just because like I'm a little bored with standard at the moment. I'm not bored with Battlegrounds for the most part. I get some trash rolls on my heroes though, so I'm a little salty in Battlegrounds. But
yeah.
anyways,
Sounds like you.
We need another balance roll on heroes and Battlegrounds. There's still some stinkers. Anyways, yeah, no, I'm legitimately excited. I think in the long run, I think it's just gonna be something that I just keep chipping away at. Again, it's like right now, like I feel this urge to beat, quote unquote, just air quotes if you're listening on audio, beat PvE, complete everything there is, at least on regular. Making any heroic proclamations at this time, but I want to get through everything on regular and PvE that the game has to offer. I don't know how long it's going to take me or how long I feel like it taking. So at the moment, I think I'm going to go pretty hard this first week, and then I think it's just going to be this thing I chip away at when I feel the urge to play Mercenaries. I want to just keep progressing that, getting through the bounties, getting through the maps. And as someone, I get oil changes more than the average bear, cause I like taking care of my car, and my car, it's not easy to do an oil change on. So I don't do it myself. I do Katie's. I don't do mine. Someone who finds himself fairly regularly sitting in a garage waiting room for at least 2 hours. This is going to be my go-to waiting room game. Like I can, like that's something I can stamp on it. Like this is going to be I am waiting on something. This is what I'm going to launch.
I think it is also one of the first only modes ever, where I feel really confident that the gameplay experience will be salt-free. If I'm playing the PvE, it seems really, really unlikely that I'm gonna get upset about something that the game did, because there's no low roll to really be had here. What the game is gonna do is drawn out on a map in front of you. You get to follow the map. It doesn't seem like the sort of thing where I'm going to be really caught by surprise by something. And I just don't anticipate being furious over the way a combat plays out. There's no top decks. Can't get top decked here.
No, well, in PvP, one of my games in PvP, I did like someone deployed like all reds, and I had the worst crap imaginable for that, and it was just like, oh, well, that sucks. So that didn't feel too great, but I don't know. I don't know how often that'll be, and again, like knowledge will evolve. We will become a meta hive mind on the PvP side of things. So we'll see how that handles. But there's definitely a moment in PvP testing where I went, "Oh, come on."
I don't anticipate you playing a lot of PvP in the waiting room.
That's true. That is true. So, anyways, yeah, weekly is my answer right now, Kilmarnock. We'll see if it holds, but I'm feeling weekly.
I think that's probably a good baseline. There will be times where it's more and times where it's less, but that's probably the equilibrium that I think we'll both land on.
Yeah. I feel probably more than once a week at least, but yeah. Anyways, write in, be a part of the show, tacpodcast@gmail.com. You can tweet at the show at tacpodcast. But that's going to bring us to the end of our Mercenaries launch day episode. Let us know what you're thinking, everyone. Next episode, we'll probably check back in with the other modes, have a more traditional episode of the Angry Chicken, and also find out what the hell traditional Angry Chicken looks like moving forward with yet another game mode that it looks like we'll all be playing. Joy of joys. If you would like to support this podcast that could quickly balloon to taking up half of my week, check out patreon.com/TAC. It's a great place to go and support us. Simply $1 or more. Here's a tip too. I don't know if you know this. You can cap it at $1. And that's fine. You want to do it? Some folks do that. That's all you want to give. You want to give us $1 a month? You can do that. You can set it for $1. You can set a cap of $1. We certainly appreciate everyone who doesn't have a cap or giving more than $1, but whatever works for you. If you want to support this podcast, we appreciate it. And it really, really does help. So also a huge thanks to our Patreon producers, Declan H, Jeffrey D, and Dustin C. If you want to become a producer, well, thank you each and every episode. There's more info over on the Patreon. The back catalog of episodes can be found at theangrychicken.com or youtube.com/amove2. And other than that, you should go follow Jocelyn at Joss Plays. Check out the Gamers Inn and keep an eye out for her Extra Life updates, or go donate to her Extra Life campaign if you haven't already. Hat, where can folks find you?
Best place to find the hub of my content is twitter.com/ridiculoushat. Also, I'm on 2 other Hearthstone podcasts, Coin Concede, where we make the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. I feel confident there will be a lot of Mercs talk and PvP talk this week and in the future. And then Vicious Syndicate, where there will be no Mercs talk because that's not what we do over there. That's a data-driven look at the standard metagame over at vicioussyndicate.com. What about you, Garrett?
Well, I can be found on Twitter at Garrett Art. This podcast and every single other one that I do can be found at amove.tv, and I recently updated my portfolio website. You may know that I am a graphic designer. I actually got my degree in art. I'm getting another degree right now, but that's neither here nor there. I've also have been doing videography for quite a while now, but I didn't have any of that on my site. I do now. You can see examples of my video work. You can see more up-to-date examples of my graphic design work, and you can contact me there and hire me to make things for you. And it is now createwithgarrett.com. There are 2 T's and 2 R's. I don't know why I did it backwards on Garrett. It's Garrett, createwithgarrett.com. For some reason, it's saying not secure. There's nothing malicious on my website. I am trying to get the DNS sorted. I don't know what the issue is. And I run into this issue every time I update domains. But check it out. There's a contact form there. It goes directly to my personal inbox. And I'll get back in touch with you. That's going to wrap it up for this episode of The Angry Chicken. Until next time, enjoy Mercenaries, and job's done.
Job's done.